Well, hello. This is Dan Bell from Future of Hampton Roads, and today is Thursday, April 10th, and I am sitting beside Patti Hamilton, President and CEO of Hamilton Consulting Solutions Corporation in Chesapeake, Virginia. Good morning, Patti.
Good morning, Dan.
And thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to have a conversation about your business and the market that you're in, etc. We very much appreciate that.
No, thank you. I appreciate you taking your time.
All right. Well, let's dive right in. And why don't you just take a few minutes and tell us a little bit about yourself, personal background, etc.
My personal background isn't what I'm doing now. I was a banker. My father was a banker. I grew up helping my dad back in the day where he was, handwritten ledgers and everything. So I got into banking out of high school and did that for about 8 years. We moved to Chesapeake in 1986. I was still in the banking world and started to work for a bank here, a small little bank called Chesapeake Bank and Trust. It was only 7 branches. Was hired to help them do an acquisition, stock acquisition, buying out another bank, smaller bank than the 7-branch bank. And then I went on to be branch manager for a while, but I got talked into going into federal government by one of my neighbors that I had met when we moved to Chesapeake, and went in as a GS5 in a ladder program in order to accommodate the training that I needed to run their computer center.
Interesting. And what's a GS5 for those people who might not be familiar with the government rankings, etc.?
It's numbered. It's almost an administrative type position.
So it's a job description code.
It is a code, and what it is I was hired in a 5, 7, 9, 11, 12 code, which means by 12 you're in management position. So it was within 5 years I knew I was going to actually be where I was when I left banking. So 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But it was actually 2 steps back, only 1 step forward. But it was well worth it because the training that I received and the experience that I received, really paid off for what I'm doing now. So I was hired into what they call a black program, which meant I started working after I got my security clearance. I had to get my clearance before I could actually show up on the job site and at the command, and I didn't know what we did. I had to go on trust. It wasn't advertised to anybody that this program actually existed. And it wasn't until
Was that like what we could tell you but we'd have to kill you type of thing?
Absolutely.
My goodness. All right.
Yes.
That's exciting.
It was nerve-wracking. I think I cried for 2 solid weeks on my way home every night. Going, what did I do? Because I was working in a SCIF, and a SCIF is a building that's been protected for sound, no sound emulations. There's no windows, of course. Military people that I'd never been exposed to coming from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to here. I didn't know what the terminology was. It was very, very new, very frightening. Like, what did I do? What did I do? I'm sharing a desk with 2 other people. Nice. And they're the old metal desk.
Of course,
coming from the banking environment with drapes and windows and nice furniture and carpet on the floor, and I'm running a raised computer center.
Working on something that you can't tell anybody about, too.
I couldn't even tell my husband. And actually, 1990 is when we got into Desert Shield, Desert Storm. And I actually knew when we were going to do strikes in Iran and Iraq, and I would put the old VHS tape into the recorder and record it for 3 o'clock in the morning for CNN because I knew it probably was going to get covered.
My goodness.
So then I could show my husband, this is what I do.
Wow.
So after Desert Storm started, we actually, and things kind of, about a year or so later, we actually had a family day at the command and declassified a lot of the systems, and we're allowed to bring our families in for a walkthrough and a briefing of what we did, and show them some imagery. And what I did was I worked in the Tomahawk cruise missile program.
Is that where you tell the kids don't touch any of the buttons?
Yeah, that's a very absolute. Yeah, because we did have problems, even with some sailors touched the wrong buttons.
Whoops.
Because I ran a computer center. It was 24/7.
Oh my goodness! Destruct.
Yeah, and sometimes it would be like, well, is the light lit in the back at 3 in the morning when they'd call you up and say, oh, there's a problem with this one tape drive. I'd be like,
interesting.
Did somebody hit the switch?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that they were no longer employed there, and they're probably working
They were
at a nuclear
sailors.
reactor at this point in time. So it makes me feel much better.
Yeah. So they stuck around. So I progressed pretty, I think, faster than the 5-year period I was put into a management position.
Mhm.
And the gentleman that kept, which was my neighbor that kept kind of hounding me to work there, he was looking for a promotion, and he wanted to groom me so he could say, well, Patty's going to take my job.
Sure.
I can take over as
He's
deputy.
building a succession plan.
Yes,
Right.
and it did kind of sort of work, but for me, but not so well for him, because that's another long story. We won't get into that.
That's a whole different session, right?
But I got to experience a lot of different things I wouldn't have if I stayed in banking. I traveled a lot. I went to the Middle East. That was a huge.
Where at the Middle East?
We were only supposed to be in Bahrain. But we got deterred to a couple other countries. I think, I still can't talk about.
You still can't talk about it. Okay, I'll just turn this recording device off for a second. No, I'm just teasing.
It was kind of nerve-wracking because it wasn't on our itinerary either until we got there, and we were told we had to go do some other inspections. We were doing a lot of computer systems.
So you're still classified. You're still classified.
Yes, from a company. Yes, we do carry. We carry a facility clearance for the company, and in turn, being key management, all key management has to hold the same level of classification.
Okay, cool.
So,
all right. So you went to places in the Middle East and traveled the world and got to be involved in some fairly fascinating projects and activities.
I've been on submarines and aircraft carriers and frigates, and that's kind of when I decided, when I broke my hand for the second time on an aircraft carrier for a bar.
Those are some hard places.
I decided.
I've done an embark myself, and you can get hurt.
Yes.
Very easily.
I decided I was just too old to be climbing those ladders.
Exactly right. People don't realize, for those of you who do not know, I mean, just the steep nature of it and bulkheads, and I mean, that's an injury waiting to happen if you are not practiced and familiar with navigating.
And I'm afraid of heights, so that doesn't
help. Oh yeah.
I think the last time I was on an aircraft carrier, we came off on the quarterdeck, which was probably 3 stories high on an aircraft carrier, and there was a nor'easter blowing. And sailors go up and down those ladders without even holding the rails because they're so experienced, and I have to hold with both hands on a good sunny calm day. And the sailors were holding on with 2 hands. I thought, how can I get off of here? I thought I was going to have to stay. It took me probably 20 minutes to get down to the pier. I was soaked to the skin because it was raining so hard, and I was like, no, let's do something different.
Yeah, I bet that sounds. But it's memories of a lifetime.
Absolutely.
Memories of a lifetime.
Yeah.
So, how did you make the transition to your current company, and then tell us about Hamilton Consulting and Solutions Corporation?
Well, real quick, I was government, and I was asked to be a deputy for cruise missile programs. They wanted me to move to D.C. and take over as the deputy for the whole program office. At that time, there was a hiring freeze on for government, so SAIC was one of our prime contractors. So somebody up at the program office kind of suggested that SAIC possibly create a position that I could accommodate and move to them. So that happened.
So they did that basically because they wanted you.
They did create this position. That was very nice. However, it only lasted 4 months, and I had a personal illness that kind of took me out of working for a while. But SAIC was really, really good and kept me on. And kind of when I was well enough to come back to work, they had to fill that position for the government. But SAIC moved me into another aspect, still working with Tomahawk cruise missiles, doing IB&V work, which is independent validation verification. So what we did was we go out behind, like McDonnell Douglas, who turned into Boeing, General Dynamics, that created, they were the developers, and we go out and test to make sure that the requirements met what the government needed and the software worked according to requirements. That's kind of the base of my company. So I did that for 7.5 years with SAIC. I was 12.5 years with the government, and I got wine and dined kind of by a small consulting company out of DC, and our theme song for SAIC was Another One Bites the Dust, because it was back in 2007, and we were losing a lot of support on the contracts, downsizing for the government, and programs were going away and being downsized. So
It could have been worse. That could have been your theme song when you were in the banking business, and that would have been a whole different story.
That would have been harder. But so I went to this other company because the handwriting was on the wall.
Yeah.
I was a remote person. I lived in
Yeah.
Chesapeake and worked up in D.C. Was one of those, you
Yeah.
know, for 7 years,
Yeah.
road warrior.
Yep.
So I went to work for this small consulting firm. 3 months into that position, I was managing 3 different contracts down here in
Okay.
Hampton Roads.
Yep.
All 3 of them went up for recompete against, the contract was at end.
Mhm.
They put it for open bid so other companies could bid against it. And 2
Yep.
out of the 3 contracts got overbid by other companies. So
Mm.
we lost those contracts and the traction here. So that company wanted me to stay on and do business development.
Mhm.
But they had done a lot of they didn't manage the company as a small business. They were
Right.
trying to take it into the next realm, and
Right.
they brought on a capital management group, which made them not be able to compete for small business in the government.
Right.
So I was talked into starting my company.
All right.
I wasn't one of those entrepreneurs. I always wanted to have my own company. I never had those thoughts.
Strong desire. Yeah.
But it was actually my husband that was the most supportive, saying,
Uh-huh.
you work 12, 14 hours for these other companies.
You might
and
as well do it for yourself.
you might as well do it for us,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And so that's, you know, I start looking at the future. My children were grown.
Yep.
You know, we were, you know, stable,
Mhm.
you know, so it was okay to give up that
Define
paycheck.
stable, Patty. I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, stable financially.
Okay.
You know, it's always nice to have that paycheck because 6 years into
Right,
this,
right.
I still do not take a paycheck.
Oh.
I put everything we make back into the company, so we've never had debt for the company,
Mhm.
and that's good. It's been a good strategy for us. But you know, it'd be nice to, you know, go,
Yeah, a
you
little
know,
bit.
have that paycheck
Yeah,
back.
well, you're
And
building.
this year, I'm probably going to have to, because we're an S corporation. At the end of the year,
Mhm.
our account looks at things and tells me what kind of bonus I have to pay back to myself, because you can't keep putting all the profits into a company and run the company. You have to be able to.
Well,
You
that's
have to
interesting.
take back a percentage.
Okay. Okay.
So, you know,
Well,
when you hear about these big companies, like, oh my gosh, did you see the bonuses that
Right.
the guy from
Yeah, $1 million
GM
bonus, yeah.
took? You know, well, it's because that's the way it's structured, and I didn't understand it. So I did a lot of due diligence before I started the company to learn
Mhm.
about all these different obstacles, and it really made me understand the world better too.
Mhm.
About, you know, bad mouthing these people that are taking bonuses. It's a lot of times it's because they've made that kind of a profit for their company and their
Mhm.
employees,
Mhm.
so therefore they have to take it. It's not like they're being, oh, let me reward myself.
Mhm.
It's structured that
Well, that
way.
may be well and good, but I still hate your guts, Patty. Just teasing.
I
If
hope
they can
you
get
hate my
it,
guts
I do
someday.
not hate your guts. Yes,
No, I hope
that's
you
the way to
do.
do it. Yes, I want to hate your
Someday.
guts a year from now.
That would be, I would like that.
Yeah, but
Maybe
actually,
2 years.
but actually, I agree 100%. I mean, people they just read the headlines, and you know, it's shareholder returns, and it's a piece of the action, and it's all part of just driving company success. So your point is well taken.
And we started the company as an S corporation because when I worked for SAIC, when I initially did,
Mhm.
it was employee owned,
Mhm.
and people really had a different attitude
Mhm.
about that. You owned part of that company, so when you went on travel, you thought twice about when you were turning in your travel claim to make
Mhm.
sure it was
Mhm.
adequate.
Mhm.
You know, going to the supply closet and taking those extra
Yeah.
pens and paper for your kids, you know, school supplies. If you were a part owner in a company,
Yeah.
you kind of think about that differently.
Yeah.
They went public about a year before I left, and that just really changed the whole culture for the company and the dynamics. And so I started as an S corporation. We're hoping to make it employee-owned someday.
Mhm.
Not right now because we're too small and the contracts are too small. But that is offered to our employees after a year,
Mhm.
that they can have stock. We don't have our stock options open yet,
Mhm.
but that is a goal that
Mhm.
we have, you know, for the next
And it's a pretty darn good goal.
couple years.
So the focus on your current company, it's really a continuation of what you were focused on prior.
Yes,
to
that's
opening
how
up
I
the
started
company.
it with, I started with just myself, and I really thought I was just going to just do consulting work. And so
Mhm.
it's a consulting firm, and another reason for starting it as a consulting firm, is if you're structured that way down the road, you can actually hire on consultants, not full-time employees, and be able to hold their security clearance and do work in a secure environment as opposed to having a C Corp or an LLC. So, we did all that research and talked to attorneys and before we structured it the way we did. And so I started out just doing project management, basically change knowledge management, went to, got hired by a couple of companies to go in and actually manage their government contracts. And help them set up processes and procedures. And then we started getting looked at by some other companies to team with them. When I started the company, woman-owned small business was not a set-aside within the government. Service-disabled, veteran-owned, veteran-owned, 8A companies, which is minority companies, had that consideration of set-asides, but woman-owned wasn't until just a year and a half, 2 years ago.
I'm really glad you raised that point because that was my next question. So take us through this woman-owned business classification that the government has.
Well, there is, you can be self-certified as a woman-owned small business, or you can go through the process to get it, what they call an EDWSB, which is Economically Disadvantaged Woman-Owned Small Business, which is an 8M certification. We were in the kind of like in the pilot program with the SBA. We were one of the first companies to do all the paperwork, to submit it, see some of the hard spots and how things have changed since we did that 2 years ago. It's appears to be a little simpler, which is good. So we went through that growth pain with the SBA to get that accomplished, and we were glad we did. However, some of the larger companies, it's only now that they're starting to put out set-asides that are EDWSB. We actually got contacted not that long ago, like 3 or 4 months ago, by General Dynamics.
Wow.
They were boots on the ground working at the Coast Guard station, Elizabeth City, and they said, this is our work, but the contract came up for recompete, and they put it out as an EDWSB set-aside, and we don't even know what that means. But I saw your company. They interviewed 12 companies to work with them, and they chose us. And it's been, we still don't know about the contract yet. It's not been awarded. So a lot of companies, the bigger companies actually have to do what small business reporting. They have to give at least, I think it's 25% to small businesses if they have a large contract. It's all dictated on dollar amounts and thresholds, so they now are having to report how many women-owned companies they have.
Is that right?
And so this past year we've gotten a little bit more popular. I want to say probably since September, not even a full year. We've gotten more knocks on our door saying, oh, can you help us out?
Wow, the planet's aligned nicely, I would say.
It's getting there. It's not quite there.
Right.
But it is there. One of the hard spots, really hard spots with government contracting is they're putting so much out, they're called MAC awards, multiple award contracts. Say they have 5 large companies like the Lockheed Martins, the Boeings of the world. They don't want to risk having them being challenged, so they award them as a MAC. So everybody gets an award on a certain contract, and then you all have to go in and compete for task orders.
Oh, wow.
So we're on several of those that now you've got to kind of duke it out for the task order level, and then now there's multiple subs on your prime, so you're competing against the subs on your prime for your prime, and then the prime's competing against maybe 5 or 7 other companies. So you still have this competition going on after you get the award. So you never pop the champagne cork on the award. It's just kind of, guess what, we got an award today. Woo-hoo. Let's get a task order, and then we get excited. So that's just what I call the roller coaster ride of government contracting.
Wow, it sounds, I don't know what it's like now, but I've had the experiences of working with the government in various branches, Navy, Air Force, etc., in previous organizations, and the amount of red tape and process was crazy. I mean, to the point that there might be things, even hard, I'm really dating myself now, but ages and ages ago, where you might repair disk drives or printers, whatever, and they would sit on the shelf for months waiting for all the paperwork to be processed, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, payment was something different altogether. So are there still some of those challenges?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, folks, you got to understand. Patty's nodding here excessively. Oh yeah.
Well, actually,
It's a big system. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's a big system.
there's just too many fingers in the pot.
Yeah.
I really, it's gotten a little bit better. If you're a small business and you're working directly
Yeah.
for the government,
Yep.
you can insist they pay you in 15 days from invoice.
Really?
But if you're a sub, that prime is a large company,
Yep.
they can't insist on that. So therefore, they're not paying
Yeah.
the subs sometimes for 45, 60 days.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that's after you invoice, and that's
Yeah.
in the arrears, so they've already worked. So you've paid your employees for
Fascinating.
probably 4 paychecks before
Right.
you
That's right.
even see something back.
Yeah.
So you're always behind, and that's
Yeah.
something that I've seen some businesses go out of business because they don't manage that well. We established a line of credit back in 2008.
I was going to say, back to the banking business now.
Back to banking. I
Right.
knew that
Yeah.
I didn't know how things were going to go.
Right.
And I'm very thankful that right initially, when we started the company
Right.
in 2008,
Right.
we got a line of credit against the company.
Right.
And we've only had to tap it twice
Mhm.
and paid it off in a month.
Yep.
So we've been really good with that. But we've also established, because now we're on larger contracts, and if we get one of these task orders
Right.
and we have to hire, a surgeon right
Yep.
away,
Yep.
we're aligned to be able to do that because we've gotten established lines of credits against our accounts receivables.
Yep. Yep.
So, we're postured to do that, and a lot of companies don't realize how long it takes before you have to be able to pay the employees, the taxes, the
Yeah.
insurances.
Yeah.
For a good 3 months, you
Yeah.
have to feel comfortable that I'm not going to worry on month number 4 if I still haven't gotten that,
Yeah.
payment
Yeah.
on that invoice, especially if you're sub to a large prime.
Yeah.
Because there's too many layers of people to try to get to somebody that cares.
Oh, yeah. Well.
I mean, if you're a prime and you're going straight to the government,
Yeah.
that's not as hard.
Yeah.
But going straight to one of the bigger companies,
Yeah.
I still can't find who to talk to on
Yeah,
one
it's interesting.
prime.
That's fascinating. So just a quick aside, of course, for anybody from the government listening, we love you.
Yes.
If there's anybody out there from the Internal Revenue Service, we love you even more.
Oh, yes, we do. And we've probably, I think there's a little light on the top of our, of my head saying, audit me. I'm really good at it. We've gotten, for such a small company, we've gotten every audit you can imagine.
Audit me.
But you know what? Those audits have, like, we got a Department of Labor audit before we had full-time employees.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? I tried to get out of it, and they kept pushing off, saying, okay, well, we'll get
Yeah.
And then finally they came in, like, full throttle. But
Yeah.
it taught me so much
Yeah.
that
Oh, yeah.
when we hired that first group of people in, it was just like, okay, I wouldn't have known this if I hadn't gone through the audit. So, we just take every, like, little setback as a learning
Well,
experience.
and I have to say, it's all learning experiences because, Patty and I are involved in technology efforts here locally, and she's been a great advisor and mentor to people that are coming up and talking about all the experiential learning that you've had related to government business. Speaking of which, in your beautiful trifold brochure, we see you have customers of the U.S. Navy. It's good that you said U.S. because you could put any
Yes.
country in front of there, but it's all ours. The Navy, the Army, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard.
Yes.
So, you expanding that list at all?
Yes, actually, we just got approached about a month ago for a couple gentlemen that work a lot with DISA, which is the Defense Intelligence Service Agency,
Okay.
and they like what we do. A lot of that is IT work,
Yep.
and a lot of the bigger companies, excuse me, they don't want to risk what they call OCI, operational conflict of interest.
Hmm.
If they're developers, if they're writing code and doing software and building
Right.
widgets, they don't want to be contracted out of that. So the requirements analysis that we do,
Right.
we do the program management, project management, the requirements analysis, the software testing, those type of things the bigger companies don't want to touch.
Wow.
So there's a lot of money out there for companies that want to just do that work, and that's our strong point. That's
Right.
our swim lane. That's what we do.
Right.
And this has come back. A couple gentlemen that work through with them, and they're saying, okay, we need to look
Yeah.
at that agency. We also have a couple people a really long story on that one. I won't get into that. That
There's
work
gonna be a side B on this tape then.
out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that deal a lot with healthcare.
Yeah.
And I know the healthcare industry is big. It's
Yeah.
not something that we've done before,
Yeah.
but it is like we're listening to them. They do
Mhm.
a lot of software development
Mhm.
with help with the healthcare industry. They do
Mhm.
composite. I don't even really understand exactly what they do,
Mhm.
but they've reached out to us to kind of help them get into government contracting because
Mhm.
they do have a niche, and it is something that the government definitely buys.
Yeah.
So we may be looking that's in our strategic plan
Right.
for down the road,
Right.
not right away. We're also been pinged, and we've been working this for a year,
Mhm.
and it's still a work in progress because
Right.
it's with the government,
Right.
with unmanned vehicles and UVAs, drones.
Yeah.
That is the future. We know
Yeah.
that. My background in flying Tomahawks,
Yeah.
that totally intrigues me.
Hmm.
So we've been talking with some folks at the National Geospatial Agency, the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Mhm.
So we're going outside, even
Hmm.
though it's DoD kind of centric. We're still kind of
Yeah.
looking at other agencies to do business with besides the broad bands of
Yeah.
the Navy and Marine Corps.
You know, it's interesting that you bring that up. Another hat that I wear is working on various regional projects, and one such project is expanding or identifying high opportunity growth sectors in the technology space. Again, for the greater region of Hampton Roads, and unmanned aircraft / drones, aka drones, is right at the top of our list of dialogues. So, since everybody's listening, may I ask you to participate in that session?
Sure.
She's nodding again. See, she can't say no in front of everybody.
No, one of my guys that works with me always says, "Can you say no?" I can't say no, but that is an area, things that interest our
Yeah.
company and can help
Well,
build
that's
our
what I thought,
company,
yeah.
and how we can exchange information with
Yeah,
companies and
yeah.
people is certainly something we want to be interested in.
Yeah, and it's only 25 hours a week that you have to invest.
That's all?
That's all?
I can do that between midnight and 4
Well, listen,
a.m.
we've heard a lot about your company. Let's look forward and talk to some of the topics about some of your advice for entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, new businesses in Hampton Roads. And before I go on there, so any expansion outside, you're 100% government focused right now. Have you started thinking about that?
You know, we need to, and we talked about that last year, especially through sequestration when a couple of our
Yeah.
contracts got a little bit tipsy. We do, but it's not what I totally know, and
Yeah.
everybody I hire is prior military, prior government.
Right,
It just fits,
Right.
you know. So
Right.
we've talked to other people. Brett Scott's been a great mentor.
Brad
to
Scott
me.
of Seton Corp, Chesapeake, right?
Yes, he's been a great mentor to,
Mhm.
you know, he does more commercial
Mhm.
work, and you know, I've offered to help him to get into more
Yes,
government,
yes.
and he can teach me the ropes of commercial. And I've taken a few of Brad's advice of last fall,
Yeah, he's real good.
and jumped in and did some,
Yeah,
you know,
he's
hiring
real good.
some consulting salespeople,
Yes.
and it's been helpful.
And for our listening audience, Brad Scott is in Seton Corp is one of the other interviews that we have in this series, and he is Native American, Chickasaw Nation, and I believe #1 Native American growth company in the United States. So and doing quite well. And Patti and Brad, along with several others, we're all members of the Chesapeake Technology Business Consortium, ctbc.biz, and we get together and talk about a lot of this stuff on a regular basis. So let's now talk about the young entrepreneurs and new businesses in Hampton Roads. What have you learned about our region specifically, and what forms of advice might you have?
Well, as far as the region goes, it seems like it's hopeful that a lot of the military people getting out stay here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they already have their children established in the schools. The
Uh-huh.
school districts are great here.
Mhm.
You know, their spouses may be working
Mhm.
already, and they're looking to continue,
Mhm.
you know, a new career here.
Mhm.
So the only bad thing is that I've seen that these people, men and women getting out of the military, they need to know that there's a business side to any endeavor that they start out to do. And if
Mhm.
they don't want to do that business side of a
Mhm.
company or know about it, they need to either know they gotta hire somebody,
Yeah.
or they gotta stop and take some courses along the way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that ODU offers, TCC offers.
Mhm.
There's federal contracting courses that ODU has. There's also some associations that offer federal contracting courses. And that gives you like the lingo. There's nothing worse than running into somebody that says, I just opened a company. I used to do information assurance in the Navy, and I know all this stuff, and I got out as an E8, which is a senior chief, which is a great accomplishment in the military. But then they're going to sit and they think they're entitled,
Right.
Because
that's fascinating.
That's my worst. That's my pet peeve is entitlement. People that just say, well,
I've been here, so I deserve.
Here, so yeah. So, and it's not saying nothing bad about the military.
Absolutely
God
not.
bless them all.
Yep. But it's a mindset.
It's a mindset. You know, people that qualify for an 8A, which is a minority, which can be females. You know,
Sure.
race, religion. You know, it's a minority.
All the above.
They think that it's going to come to me. It's not going to come to anybody. You know,
It's
that
a tough
starts.
And what you're saying is it's a tough market out there.
It is. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to do your due diligence
You're
and
right.
learn what it takes to run a company.
Right.
Learn what market you're going after.
Right.
Learn who else is out there.
Right.
When I did, I started with a lot of different government type associations. AFCEA, which is the Armed Forces Communication Electronics Association. TASC, which is the Tidewater Association of Government Contractors. Women in Defense.
Yep.
You know, got involved with those associations, not just went to lunches and listened to what people, said at my table. It was I got on the board of directors, and I helped with, achieving what their, charter and goals were.
Yep.
And got to meet people.
Yep.
You need to get out there and learn those things.
Yeah.
And not just, you can't just sit there and wait for it to come to you. You have to put yourself out there. I know a gentleman that is marvelous at what he does, but he's so shy, he won't even stand up and introduce his company at a luncheon.
That's a deficit. It's going to hurt him.
And, and I've sat and told him, then you need to hire somebody that will stand up and say, this is the president, whatever your title, you want to omni-dom him.
And then you have the chief talk-to officer, absolutely.
You have to have that gift of gab.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, when I started with the government, I was very quiet.
Well, my goodness gracious, Patti, this interview is already at 31 or 32 minutes and counting. My goodness. You have overcome that deficit.
I have.
You're doing great.
I have.
Yeah. So, what other advice? So, you talked about, there's. Let me back up with a factoid. I think this region experiences 12,000 exiting military personnel. That's probably predominantly Navy, of course, per year.
Wow.
12,000.
That's a big number.
Yeah, and of course that number's going up. What you were talking about, if you, and there's a couple different courses to take. Of course, you can look as a job seeker. You can look as an entrepreneur to try to start something up. And you've talked about some of the characteristics that are necessary for somebody taking the entrepreneurial path. What about the job seeker path? And you hire people as consultants, etc. What are you looking for? What kind of advice can you provide people that when they're looking for a job, not just trying to create a job?
I really like to. There's what they call a TAP class. That when the military are getting out of the military, they go to what they call TAP, and I don't even know what TAP stands for. But I really like to go and help, and give some advice to that, because I've had people coming out of the military, and I know you haven't had to do interviews of the nature that it takes. I know you have to interview for promotion boards and that type of things.
Right.
But it is quite different, and I know the TAP classes try to offer that and resume writing, but we're still getting resumes that are 5 and 8 pages long. 2 pages.
Riddled with military acronyms and terminology that in many cases corporations have no clue what you're talking about, or it's not a one-to-one correlation.
We actually hired a person that never was exposed to the military, just to help us with that, to give that, to go to meetings, and people were standing up giving briefings, and her hand kept going up. What's that mean? What's that mean?
Exactly.
You have to be able to talk to a wide, a wide range of your. You have to know who your audience is, first of all, and you have to make sure you're not throwing out all those acronyms.
Yeah.
But they're also, I've had several people first interview, start talking salary. and they've told them, you know.
Were they asking for $1 million bonus?
They're asking. Well, I think one guy asked me if we gave company cars.
Oh.
I was like, I don't know.
Wow.
I don't think so. You know, mine's not.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't have a company car.
Look out in the parking lot here.
You know, we don't do that.
That's
you know,
fascinating. Yeah.
You know, and coming in saying, well, I won't work for less than 80,000. And in today's market, that might have been that way several years ago in a contracting world. The contractors kind of, it's tilted both ways. The contractors made more than civil service.
Yeah.
Civil service is now kind of making more than contracting world, and you've got to accommodate for that. There's a thing that the government says with LPTA, which they're dictating kind of the pricing range.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's nothing worse. I had a lady send me an email wanting to come in for an interview, and gave her life history about how she was divorced, and you know, don't get into the personal stuff yet.
Yeah.
I'm a very personal person.
Sure, but
and I really want to know
that comes later.
What your kids do,
Right.
and you know,
Right.
we highly support you know, the family balance, and that's why we have the scales on our logo.
Yeah.
That's
that's good. That's a very interesting.
That's not because we're a legal firm. It's because we want balance, you know, between family and careers and life.
That's great.
There's got to be a balance.
Yeah, so everybody look at Hamel Consulting Solutions Corporation on the web, and the acronym HCSC is there. And to Patty's point, like the scales of justice are on the top, but they're not the scales of justice. They're the scales of balance.
Yeah, scales of balance, and
Yeah.
that's what we were.
I never knew that.
Started to
Yeah,
do.
that's
But,
pretty neat.
you know, when you come in for an interview or you're trying to get in the door to talk to somebody, you know, make sure it's professional. Please dress correctly. I've had people show up in shorts and flip flops. It's like, what exactly are you looking?
Yeah.
What type of position?
Yeah.
Get to know the company.
Yeah.
Go in there. When we go out and talk to another company to team with,
Yep.
we look at every page of their website. Excuse me. We learn, you know, we go in and Google the president to see what other things he's involved in.
Right.
We know what that company is going to do and how we can team with them.
Yeah.
So you need to go in there and know what the company does and know how you can help that company.
That's right.
Not what the company is going to do for you, what you can do for the company. That aces an interview. You know, when I know, you know what my company does and the areas that your expertise can benefit the company, not sit there and go, well, what jobs you have for me.
Yeah.
You know, so that aces it for me. That
Yeah.
really does. So, you know, do your due diligence, dress professionally, talk professionally. Don't come in acting.
Dude, how you doing?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's not going to cut
And
it.
I've seen that. You know,
Yeah.
we've done the job fairs that Randy Forbes sponsors
Yep.
every year,
Yeah.
and you see people from every walks of life come through, and they don't know exactly what your company does, but they'll stand there and talk to you, and they want to get to know what you do. But I've seen people come through carrying their kids on a hip and
Wow.
not dressing professionally, not being prepared, you know, and don't bother showing up if you're not going to know what you're showing up for.
That's great advice. And you know, that holds true for, I would say, every corporation out there. I mean,
Absolutely.
sometimes they have specialty needs and they can overlook that, but generally the business market is such a tough place right now. You have to differentiate. You have to be on top of your game. You've got to lead the way. And we have several stories, Patty. You know them firsthand about some of the internship programs that we've used, and you talk about some of the military people coming to job fairs. We've had the same conditions with students coming right out of the college system. So it's like, nope, you got to start listening to the employers, what they're looking for. And I really, really, really love that comment. You know, to paraphrase John Kennedy, ask not what your country can do for you, what you can do for your country. It's the same thing, just interchange country with company, and that's what employers are looking for.
Very good. I like that. I'm going to take that. I'll use that.
No, you gave it to me, but I'll use it.
Okay.
I'll give you credit. So in our final moments here, Patty, anything that you'd like to close with?
It's rough. I mean, you have to be able to. A mentor, when I took a federal contracting class, and one of the mentors that came to talk to us actually happened to be a founder of AMSEC, which was a subdivision of SAIC, involved in a lot of different businesses and everything. And you know, basically, he said, you got to know, if you're starting your company, you have to be financially able to not take a paycheck.
Yeah.
people that take a page, that get that contract money in, pay themselves, go buy the new car,
Yeah.
you know, instead of growing the company, is
Mhm.
not going to succeed down the road.
Mhm.
You've got to always have a 5-year plan,
Mhm.
and you do.
Mhm.
And you have to know that there's going to be peaks and valleys. Last year hit a lot of companies hard with
Oh, yeah.
sequestration. It
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
just government contracting companies.
Oh, yeah.
It was across the board.
Mhm.
You know, the 7-Eleven outside the base got a hard hit when those people were
Mhm.
furloughed for a month.
Mhm.
You know, their business went down.
Mhm.
So you've got to plan for those things. You have to
Mhm.
know that you know it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's a rough ride. If
And
it was easy, everybody'd be doing it.
Exactly. So you have to be aware of those things.
Mhm.
You have to be able to put yourself out there,
Mhm.
and then once you start getting employees, you have to be available to your employees. To me, I look at it as a huge family.
Yep.
You know, and you know, it drives the fight in me to
Yeah.
keep building, so
Yeah.
we keep these people employed
Yeah.
and can employ more people.
Well, that's fantastic. And speaking as the newly adopted member of your family, I want to thank you very much for the time that you gave us today. It was enlightening. We wish you nothing but success. It sounds like you are well on your way. And again, everyone, Patti Hamilton, President and CEO of Hamilton Consulting Solutions Corporation in Chesapeake, Virginia. Thank you. And Dan Bell, Future of Hampton Roads, signing off.
Thank you, Dan.